You know how terrifyingly easy it is to ruin a reputation these days?
Oh, absolutely. It takes almost nothing.
Right. It just takes a few, like, carefully chosen words. You drop a single toxic rumor into the public consciousness, and I mean, it's exactly like dropping a drop of black ink into a glass of perfectly clear water.
Yeah, and you can't just take it back out.
No, you really can't.
The water is forever changed, you know? The damage is done the absolute microsecond that ink makes contact with the water.
Exactly. It's totally irreversible. I mean, you can issue 100 frantic retractions, you can apologize, you can provide all the context in the world, but that ink has already spread into every corner of the glass.
It's everywhere.
Yeah. So today, we are taking a deep dive into a collection of ancient texts that treat that exact scenario, the spreading of false information, the whispering of unjust accusations, not just as like a bad social habit, but as an absolute fabric-tearing cosmic crime.
It really is a fascinating compilation of texts we have in our stack of sources today.
It is. We're looking at everything from ancient practical proverbs to the highly symbolic apocalyptic visions of the early church.
And it is a remarkably profound stack of reading. I mean, while the genres of these writings shift wildly, the overarching theme is incredibly cohesive.
Yeah, it's a severe, unblinking warning against false witnesses, isn't it?
Precisely. It explores the sheer, exhausting endurance required of anyone trying to broadcast the truth. And it ultimately rests on the promise of a divine judgment that finally cuts through all that noise.
And right at the top, we need to be crystal clear about our mission for this deep dive. Think of this as like a literary and philosophical autopsy of these original texts. We want to impartially unpack the profound ideas, the ancient warnings, and really the psychological weight contained within them.
So you can truly understand the worldview they present. And to set the stage for that worldview, we have to recognize the foundational premise these sources operate under. According to these texts, we live in a reality that is just absolutely saturated with deception.
Right.
It is populated by what the texts bluntly call blind guides. But crucially, they also assert that there is an ultimate truth and a predetermined divine purpose governing everything, regardless of how chaotic the surface level appears.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand this worldview's concept of ultimate justice, we first have to understand what it considers the ultimate offense.
Which is the distortion of truth.
Yes. There's this fascinating passage in the ancient Proverbs that lays out this hierarchy of evil. It specifically lists 6 things that the divine architect of the universe hates, and then adds a 7th that it calls an abomination.
Quite a visceral list, too.
It really is. It lists things like a proud look, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked imaginations, feet that are swift and running to mischief, a false witness who speaks lies.
And then the grand finale.
Right. And finally, as the crescendo, one who sows discord among brethren.
What's fascinating here is the company that a lying tongue and a false witness keep on that list.
Yeah, it's pretty intense company.
If you look closely, the act of lying is grouped directly alongside hands that shed innocent blood.
Wow.
Yeah. In the philosophical framework of these ancient texts, the destruction of truth is elevated to the exact same moral severity as physical violence.
That was wild.
You see this reinforced in the early laws regarding community, which strictly warn the reader against carrying a false report or partnering with the wicked to be an unjust witness.
That's like looking at a computer virus.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
A single false line of code, one lie injected into the system, can bring down the entire operating system of a society. But I do have to push back a little on the structure of that Proverbs list.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, people lie all the time, sadly. It's a remarkably common human failing. So why is sowing discord among brethren, which is basically stirring up drama and division through lies, singled out as the 7th thing, the ultimate abomination? Is it really worse than shedding innocent blood?
Within the specific philosophical framework, yes.
Wait, really? Yeah.
And the reason comes down to the cascading systemic effect of a lie. The texts insist that a false witness will not go unpunished. And why is the penalty so severe? Because in this worldview, truth isn't just a collection of accurate facts.
Right.
Truth is the fundamental structural glue of reality itself. When you sow discord through a false witness, you aren't just hurting an individual target. You are actively dismantling the divine order of community.
Ah, you're breaking the social contract.
Exactly. If humans cannot trust the word of another human, cooperation collapses, society crumbles, and violence inevitably follows. So, attacking the truth is seen as a direct attack on the architect of that truth.
That fundamentally reframes it. Because if a false witness is an attack on the foundational order of reality, the texts go on to reveal that this deception isn't viewed merely as a human character flaw.
No, it goes much deeper.
It has a much darker structural source. It's spiritual.
Precisely. The texts transition from the messy earthly realm of human rumors to a staggering metaphysical concept.
The cosmic courtroom.
Yes.
This is where we get to that incredibly dramatic scene in one of the prophetic books. It paints this vivid, terrifying picture. You have Joshua, the high priest, standing before the divine judge.
But he's not alone.
No, he's not. The adversary is standing right there at his right hand. And the text specifies that this entity is there for one reason, to accuse him.
Right.
A literal spiritual trial. But the divine judge intervenes, rebukes the accuser, and defends the human, calling him a brand plucked out of the fire.
And we really have to pause here to understand what that word Satan or adversary originally meant in these ancient legal frameworks.
Yeah, let's clarify that.
It translates directly to the accuser or the prosecutor. It wasn't originally like a guy in a red suit with a pitchfork.
Right.
It was a personification of relentless, bad faith prosecution. The ancient anxiety was that every single human action was being litigated in an invisible dimension.
Wow.
And that cosmic courtroom dynamic, the relentless accuser versus the defended, trickles all the way down to our earthly experience.
Which totally explains the overwhelming paranoia in some of the other texts. One of the ancient Psalms perfectly echoes this earthly experience of feeling spiritually prosecuted.
Oh, absolutely.
The writer is crying out, saying that the mouths of the deceitful are against him, they're fighting against him without a cause, and they are returning his love with pure hatred.
It feels like the earthly manifestation of that invisible cosmic accuser.
Exactly. Because of this spiritual reality, the later letters warn the reader to adopt a stance of radical skepticism. The text says, "Believe not every spirit, but try the spirits."
And why is that?
Because the world is flooded with false prophets. The texts set up a binary test, right? A spirit of truth versus a spirit of Antichrist.
Let's talk about that term, Antichrist, because it carries so much pop culture baggage today.
Oh, totally. Movies and books have really skewed it.
But philosophically, in the context of these texts, what does it actually mean to have a spirit of Antichrist in the world?
Philosophically, it represents the ultimate anti-reality.
Right.
The texts define the Spirit of God as one that confesses the divine actually intersected with human history, that truth became flesh. Therefore, the spirit of Antichrist is the spirit of denial.
It is the fundamental rejection of tangible, objective truth.
Yes, it's a force that exists simply to muddy the waters, to invert reality, and to accuse.
But if the world is entirely saturated with these false prophets and these deceitful tongues and blind leaders...
Oh, like that famous gospel warning.
Yeah, the one stating that if the blind lead the blind, everyone just ends up falling into a ditch.
Exactly. So how is anyone supposed to navigate this? How do you figure out what is actually true when the very air you breathe is thick with cosmic deception?
It's an incredibly daunting prospect. The resolution these sources offer is a heavy, almost stubborn reliance on personal discernment, anchored in internal faith.
Because the external world is compromised.
Right. The texts acknowledge a harsh reality. The world is always going to listen to false prophets because they speak the language of the world.
People love rumors. People love a scandal.
They do. The world recognizes its own native tongue. But the writings encourage the seeker by claiming that they have the capacity to overcome this massive wave of deception.
Because, as the famous phrase goes, greater is he who is in you than he who is in the world.
Exactly.
So amidst all this chaos, all these relentless accusations, and this global blindness, the sources introduce a concept that is deeply stabilizing, but also, honestly, pretty unnerving.
Oh, the predetermined timeline.
Yes, God's predetermined timeline.
This is a major load-bearing pillar of the worldview we're examining today.
I was so struck by the poetry in the Psalms regarding this. There's a deeply intimate, intense passage where the author says to the divine, "Your eyes saw my unformed substance, and in your book all my members were written, when as yet there was none of them."
It's beautiful but weighty.
And the writings of Job double down on this heavily, stating that a human's days are strictly determined, the exact number of their months is already decided, and boundaries have been set that they absolutely cannot pass.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, We have to look at the ancient wisdom literature, which famously states that to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heavens.
Right, right.
The underlying philosophical argument here is that every single day a person wakes up and lives, they are merely continuing along a highly specific path.
A grand destiny.
Yes, a destiny that was fully known and charted out before they even drew their first breath.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Because if every single day is predetermined, where does human agency actually fit in? I mean, we were talking about human beings spreading false rumors and making accusations. If the script is already written, why do we act so maliciously?
That is a big question.
It's almost like we are actors who have been violently dropped onto a stage right in the middle of Act 3. We don't know the script. We certainly don't know the director's grand vision. So we just, stumble around the stage, knock it over the props.
I love that analogy. And let's pull on that thread. How does an actor behave when they are on stage but have no idea what the play is about?
They panic.
Exactly. They get deeply insecure, they try to make the scene entirely about themselves, they ad-lib wildly, and more often than not, they lash out at the other actors.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
The ancient Proverbs describe this exact psychological state, saying a fool has no delight in actual understanding, but only that his own heart may discover itself.
He just wants to hear himself talk.
Right. He wants to be the star of a play he doesn't comprehend.
He's sabotaging the production because he can't control the narrative.
Precisely. And the wisdom literature highlights the ultimate agonizing frustration of those actors on the stage. It bluntly says that humanity labors to seek out the work of the divine under the sun, but we simply cannot find it.
We can't see the script.
No. And this inherent, inescapable human ignorance is exactly why people falsely accuse and violently attack the truth, according to the text.
Because they're scared.
Exactly. They question and speak against what they fundamentally do not understand. They are fighting against a predetermined destiny they can't even see, and that lack of control terrifies them.
And the texts warn that this fear-driven ignorance leads people to aggressively refuse truth and reject correction. The Proverbs state that a wise person will hear and increase learning, and that keeping instruction is the literal way of life.
But the person who refuses reproof...
The actor who refuses direction from the director.
Right, that person is doomed to err.
So, because humanity is largely blind to this grand, predetermined design and prone to making incredibly destructive false accusations based on that blindness, the texts insist on a radical, unrelenting response from those who actually hold the truth.
Yes, the messengers.
Right. The messengers must relentlessly broadcast the message. They cannot stop, regardless of the pushback.
Which brings us to the imperative to speak. The early church letters outline what are basically marching orders for the messenger.
Right. They command them to preach the word, be instant in and out of season, reprove, rebuke, exhort with all long-suffering and doctrine.
That phrase, in and out of season, is fascinating.
It really is. You don't wait for a convenient time. You speak the truth when it's culturally popular, and you speak it when you are facing a literal wall of hostile accusers.
And the texts point out that even the ultimate figure of this worldview, Jesus, faced the most extreme form of false accusations.
Oh, absolutely.
When you read the gospel accounts, the religious leaders witnessed him performing miracles like casting out afflictions, but they couldn't deny the miracle itself because it happened right in front of them.
So what did they do?
They attacked his source. They initiated the ultimate gaslighting campaign. They claimed he was performing these good deeds by the power of Beelzebub, the prince of demons.
Talk about calling good evil. That is staggering cognitive dissonance. I mean, they are staring at pure healing and labeling it absolute darkness just to protect their own narrative.
It is the ultimate inversion of reality. And look at the logical defense that is used in response.
Right. Jesus speaks in parables.
Yes, and he asks a purely logical question. How can Satan cast out Satan? If a kingdom is divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand.
Which makes perfect sense.
It's a brilliant philosophical moment because it demonstrates that within this belief system, blind faith isn't the goal. Logic and faith are expected to work together to dismantle false accusations.
Letters to the Hebrews reinforce this, right?
Exactly. Stating that anyone coming to the divine must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who diligently use their minds and spirits to seek him.
Okay, but I have to bring up a really surprising twist I found in the letters of Paul.
Oh, the part about pretense?
Yes. He acknowledges that there are people out there preaching this truth out of pure pretense, basically, with entirely selfish, flawed, or false motives, while others are doing it genuinely.
Right.
And his response to this is shocking. He basically says, what does it matter? Whether in pretense or in truth, the message is being preached, and I rejoice in that.
It's quite the statement.
Wait, how does that work? How can this entire worldview be built on hating false witnesses and demanding pure truth, but then celebrate when people are speaking with false, hypocritical motives?
It seems like a massive contradiction on the surface, doesn't it?
Totally.
But it actually synthesizes the core priority of these texts beautifully. What Paul is arguing is that the message itself is infinitely bigger and more powerful than the vessel carrying it.
Aha, the truth does the heavy lifting.
Exactly. The great mandate found in the gospel records is to teach all nations. The text implies that the truth of the gospel is so inherently powerful and so preordained by that cosmic script we discussed earlier that as long as the information is moving forward, the noise of the accusers is irrelevant.
Wow.
Even the flawed, pretending hypocritical motives of some messengers are secondary. The primary singular goal is the truth reaching the listener's ears. The truth acts independently of the speaker's personal corruption.
So if the messengers are commanded to endure this meat grinder of a world, to keep broadcasting the truth, despite the world's false accusations, the cognitive dissonance, and spiritual blindness, how does this grand cosmic narrative finally resolve?
Well,
Because according to the text, it all ends exactly where we started, in a courtroom. But this time, it's the ultimate, final courtroom.
to set the scene for that final verdict, the apocalyptic text described the cultural conditions leading up to it, and it's an environment of total inversion.
Right. The later writings warn that in the last days, perilous times will come. It describes a society that sounds disturbingly familiar, actually.
Oh, very much so.
People who are fiercely self-centered, covetous boasters, proud, unthankful. And importantly for our deep dive today, it specifically lists false accusers. It says people will project a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof.
It's a society built entirely on pretense, a culture of deepfakes, if you will.
Right.
It's exactly the kind of society the ancient prophets condemned when they cried out, "Woe to them who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness."
This raises an important question, though. In a world that completely inverts reality, where good is literally called demonic, and toxic lies are treated as gospel truth, who finally sets the record straight? Who untangles the mess?
The sources are absolutely unequivocal on this point. The divine architect alone is the final judge.
Okay.
The wisdom literature concludes by stating that God will bring every single work into judgment along with every profoundly secret thing, whether it be good or evil.
Wow. Every secret thing.
Every single one. The New Testament letters confirm this, warning that every single human will ultimately stand before a perfectly omniscient judgment seat.
So, no lie actually survives the end of the story. The ink doesn't stay in the water forever.
None of it survives. The ultimate judge is completely immune to false witnesses. The cosmic accuser is finally silenced.
So what does this all mean for the faithful messenger? For the person who actually endured the mockery, who refused to ad-lib on the stage, who kept broadcasting the truth while everyone else blindly followed blind guides into the ditch.
Well, the texts outline some incredible permanent promises.
Yeah, the Proverbs say, "He who wins souls is wise."
Right.
The Gospels tell those who are falsely accused to actually rejoice, because their reward in that unseen dimension is massive. And the later letters speak of a literal crown of righteousness laid up for the faithful, handed out by the righteous judge on that final day.
But perhaps the most striking, intimately personal reward is found in the highly symbolic visions of Revelation.
Oh, I love this part.
It promises this to the one who endures. "To him who overcomes, I will give him a white stone, and in the stone a new name written, which no man knows except he who receives it."
A white stone with a secret name. We have to pause on that imagery, because in the ancient world, a white stone was often used by juries to cast a vote of pure acquittal, right?
Yes, exactly. A black stone meant guilty. A white stone meant completely, unquestionably innocent. It is the ultimate cosmic exoneration.
Wow.
But the addition of the secret name is what makes it so profound. It's a brilliant contrast to the completely public, humiliating ruin and false accusations they had to endure on earth.
It really is. Let's summarize what we've unpacked today. These ancient texts present a philosophical worldview that is staggering in its cosmic scale, yet intensely personal in its application.
Very much so.
We've seen that false words aren't just social mistakes. They are viewed as structural crimes against the very fabric of reality. We've explored the deeply challenging idea that human destiny isn't random chaos, but is meticulously written by a sovereign author, even when we are terrified because we can't see the script.
And we've seen that those who carry the truth are commanded to endure the world's gaslighting and accusations.
Trusting entirely in the relief of a final, perfectly omniscient judgment.
It's a narrative that demands absolute, grueling endurance and immense intellectual and spiritual faith from its followers.
It does. And for you listening, regardless of your personal theological beliefs, these ancient texts challenge us in a very real, urgently modern way.
They absolutely do.
They force us to think deeply about the incredible weight of our own words. When we hit retweet or casually pass on a juicy rumor at the office, are we actively carrying a false report? Are we dropping that toxic ink into the water?
It's a sobering thought.
They challenge us to look at the true, often hidden motives behind the endless accusations we hear flying around the internet every single day. And they ask us a very hard, practical question. How do we actively, intentionally discern the truth in a world that is so incredibly, deafeningly noisy?
It requires a level of intentional, quiet, critical thinking that most people simply do not have the patience to practice anymore.
It really does. I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, building on that beautiful ancient image from Revelation.
The white stone.
Yes. Think about that white stone with a new name carved into it, a name that only you and your Creator know. We started this deep dive talking about how painfully fragile a human reputation is, how a single drop of ink, a single unverified lie, can completely ruin your public image in an afternoon.
Right.
In our hyper-connected world, which is so utterly, exhaustingly obsessed with public perception, where false accusers can destroy a person's name in an instant, how incredibly liberating is the idea that your ultimate, truest identity can be kept in utter secrecy.
It's a beautiful thought.
Perfectly safe, entirely known by the universe's architect, and totally untouchable by anyone else's words.